Hi, welcome to the Healthy Kitchen. I'm Nomi Shannon, and today I'd like to share with you a really super healthy pasta dish with a couple of sauces. The first recipe I'm going to make for you is pesto sauce. The reason I'm making the pesto sauce first is because as soon as we've made the pasta, and I think you're going to be surprised at the slightly unusual pasta we're going to make, we need to seal it with the oil and the spices from the pesto. So it's a very simple pesto. You simply use 3/4 cup of olive oil. And this is a super powerful blender. You can make it in a regular blender as well, and any kind of different instructions for that I will let you know. There's our 3/4 cup of olive oil and 4 tablespoons of pine nuts. 6 cloves of garlic peeled. I've already peeled these, but I wanted to show you my super duper efficient way of peeling garlic. Very, very technical. You get a nice flat bottom jar and you smash it. Now this particular blender is so powerful you could actually leave the skin in if you wanted to. And if you have a less powerful blender, then you want to chop your garlic up fine before you put it in the blender. And we have 3/4 cup of basil packed. This is approximately enough. I'll be able to tell by the color if that's going to be enough. A couple of tablespoons of parsley. Again, it's not really necessary for a powerful blender to chop it, but if you have just a simple blender, then just do some fine chopping so your blender doesn't have to work as hard. And then a 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt, and we're ready to go. And there we have the first sauce, one of 3 that we'll be making for your pasta dish to serve yourself or company, and we'll be back in 1 minute. It's pasta time. We're going to make 2 pastas today. The first one we're making out of zucchini. Now, I don't know if you've ever had a raw zucchini, but this is something a lot of fun to try at home. I've got a special gadget that I'm going to show you how to use, but if you don't happen to own a special gadget to make your own pasta, it's very simple to just take a vegetable peel and just make long strands, peel the long way, and it'll make about 1/2 inch wide, real thin pastas. But I have this gadget, I've been using this for many years. It's called a spiral slicer or a saladaco. And it's important to cut your pasta straight. And there are these special little blades in here with multiple teeth. It's a handy little manual gadget. Thousands of people have them, people that specialize in raw food as I do. Most of the food I eat is raw. It's a lot of fun to make the pasta. You can also use it with carrots, beets, certain squashes, anything that's really firm. Now the reason I made the pesto sauce first is because as soon as you take this zucchini and slice it into little strands, it starts to get very moist. It sort of weeps. And so when you toss the pesto sauce in, that stops that from happening. You don't want that to happen because it dilutes all the delicious flavors of the sauces that you're making. So now we'll put the rest of the pesto sauce directly into the pasta. And the wonderful thing about the next sauce I'm going to make for you is you don't even have to wash out the blender because all of the yummy flavorings in the pesto sauce, the garlic and the delicious basil and the pine nuts, are repeated in some ways in the beautiful marinara sauce we'll be making for you next. So then it's really important to make sure that your pasta is coated completely with this sauce, and then it'll be fine. It'll keep for you until you're ready for your meal and to add the additional sauces. Too bad you don't have smell-o-vision because this just smells delicious. And there we go. We'll be getting ready to make our marinara sauce in 1 minute. Most of the food I cook for myself is raw, although today we'll be making a cooked pasta for you as well. And I remember about 10 years ago, I was teaching a very large class, I think it was in Atlanta, and the woman who ran the course, who invited me to come teach it, her husband was like, I'm not eating this stuff, I don't like raw food, forget it. But he was there to help with technical things. There was a big audience, and I made this recipe, and he loved the smell, and then he took a taste, and he goes, this stuff's good. So if you want to win yourself or someone else over, or dabble in raw food, this would be a great recipe for you to try, because it really tastes just like what you expect pasta, pesto, and marinara sauce to taste like. So in order to make the marinara sauce, we're going to start with, obviously, tomatoes. So we're going to slice up 4 to 6 ripe plum tomatoes or Roma tomatoes. These are pretty economical tomatoes, and the reason we're able to use these, even in the winter, is because we're going to use a secret ingredient that's really going to make even, pale winter tomatoes taste yummy. But first we'll start with fruit tomatoes. Tomatoes are a fruit. Did you know that? If it has a seed, it's a fruit. So a cucumber's a fruit, a tomato's a fruit, cucumber's a fruit. But we call them the non-sweet fruits. So I want to make up about 1.5 cups of, once it's blended. And this recipe should serve about 4. So that's about right, 1.5, 2 cups. And then what I'm going to do to make it look thick and red and yummy the way marinara should be is I got some sun-dried tomatoes, and they're just plain sun-dried tomatoes. They weren't packed in oil, they just came dry in the package. And there's no salt or anything in them. And I put them in water and I rehydrated them for probably about 4 hours. This is especially important to do if you have a regular blender. You could put in this more powerful blender, the dry ones, but you might break a regular blender, so you want to make sure that you rehydrate your tomatoes. And the secret is, even in the winter, and even if you don't have yummy tomatoes, the sun-dried tomatoes have been picked at the peak of ripeness, and so they will give you your flavor and your substance. It's always good to taste as you go. This is getting nice and thick. What I want to do is add a few more sun-dried tomatoes, so I'm going to put a teeny bit of water in. I can also use olive oil or the liquid from the soaking, just to get a little more depth of color. And then before I blend that, I'll add in about a tablespoon of Evu, extra virgin olive oil, and my favorite spice, which is called Frontier Pizza Seasoning. If you want it to taste Italian, this is what you want to use. So I'm going to start with about a teaspoon. I might use more later. And a clove of garlic. Anything that you would use in cooked pasta, you're going to use in cooked marinara sauce, you want to use in this. A little bit of parsley. Boom, 1 sprig. Here's some oregano, use that. And I may or may not use a date. Do you remember when, your grandma cooked marinara sauce on the back of the stove, and she'd keep it on the stove all day long, and the steam would rise, and it would smell so delicious, and then at the very end she'd put a little teaspoon of sugar in to balance the acidity of the tomato. Well, what we do is we use a little bit of sweet date for the same effect. So I also want to use a little sea salt. And that's it. But if you like other things in your marinara, by all means, do it. You might like olives, for example. So we'll blend this up and see where it takes us. Perfect. Now let me tell you about the pomodoro. The way you make pomodoro is you are sure to use really beautiful heirloom tomatoes, because with Pomodoro, you want a tomato that is very perfect tasting. And what you do with it is you simply dice it. I don't bother to get rid of the seeds. A lot of chefs don't like to use the seeds. I feel that there's some nourishment in these seeds, and they don't bother me at all. But if you would prefer, absolutely go ahead and seed it. And then what you want to do is chiffonade some basil. See, I have 5 or 6 little basil leaves in a stack, and I'm rolling them up in a little cigar shape. And the end where the stem is, I'm cutting off and discarding. And then I'm just slicing through, and now I have my chiffonade. The final thing you want to do is add salt. This is in a colander. Toss it all together. Do this before you leave for work in the morning, and in the evening you'll get home, and the salt will have made the tomatoes give up a lot of their liquid, if not all of their liquid, and this is the sauce you use in your cooked or your raw pasta. It's called Pomodoro. This is something that's best for summer when you have just fabulous, fabulous tomatoes. So now we have 2 sauces that are made from tomatoes. We have the marinara, we have the Pomodoro, and waiting in the background we have the pesto, and in a moment we're going to put them all together for you. One of the things we love to do in the Healthy Kitchen is to travel around the country and show you little bits of interesting things. It could be a farmer's market, it could be a really different, fabulous restaurant, that kind of thing. Well, today in Charlotte, we met a very fascinating man. His name is Chef Jean-Pierre Maréchal. He is the chef of a very fine restaurant called Savannah Red, but he's far more than that. He's interested in things that affect the lives of very many people. I think you're going to really enjoy it very much, so let's take a quick look. While you were away, we boiled up some pasta for you. And this pasta is, I like to avoid wheat. There's a lot of people that have problems with wheat and need to be gluten-free. My whole family needs to be. So this pasta is made with quinoa. And it's a little different than regular pasta. When it's hot, it's really fine. But if you want to have like a cold pasta salad or something, it doesn't work quite as well as what you're used to with the wheat-free, because missing the gluten also, it doesn't hang together quite the same way. So you'll find that hot cooked pasta that's gluten-free is fine, but if you want it cold, it's funny, it's stiff, and it doesn't hold together quite as well. So that's just an FYI, in case you're not used to it. But anyone who has any kind of symptoms, sort of chronic stomach problems or any really kind of health problems, one thing you might want to try is experimenting with literally cutting all wheat out of your diet for a couple of months. And nowadays, there's so many gluten-free products on the market, it's not as difficult to do as it used to be a few years ago. So this is the same pesto sauce that I dressed the raw pasta with. Pretty green sauce. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use the Pomodoro that we made and let it soak all day long while we were away at work, or if you prefer, you can let it soak all night if you want to serve it, for a noontime meal or something like that. And there you go. There's your second pasta with your second sauce. And we'll be right back. No excuses. You say you don't have time to make salad. I hope that this will show you that everyone has time to make salad. First, you start with a spring mix or mesclun. It's already washed, so you don't have to be chopping, cutting, washing, anything like that. And you open the box, and not only do you look at the date, which is important, but you have to really carefully inspect it. Because what happens, unfortunately, all too often is the date is right, but the refrigerated truck, I've seen this happen, they put the salad stacked up on the end of the truck and the sun is shining on it for like 10 minutes and it gets spoiled. Little carelessness. So don't just blindly grab it, and just look at the date. Because if there's one spoiled bit, it's kind of like one rotten apple spoils the bunch. And you take your mix, you throw as much in as you want. Now, I want to make a very, very simple salad today because we're serving it with the 2 pastas and the 3 sauces. So that really begs for simplicity. We have a little bit of leftover basil, so why not use it? It's delicious in salad. I know some people that make all basil salads. And then this is my favorite dressing. It's in my book, The Raw Gourmet. I think I call it Premier French dressing, but it's just so simple. And you'll see I'm not making the dressing in something and pouring it over. I'm just tossing it right on the greens, just as it is. If you want to make it a little more complex, throw in some tomatoes or whatever you want, onions. So first we're going to do 4 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar. Actually, I'm going to do 3 tablespoons, and I'll do 4 tablespoons. I'm going to use flaxseed oil, because flaxseed oil is very rich in the omega-3s. Most people in the United States and other countries are very deficient, and I just do 4, well, we'll taste it, are very deficient in omega-3s because a lot of packaged food is very high in the 9s and the 6s. So this is where you get Barlean's or another brand of flaxseed oil. This is where you get your omega-3s. Now some people say, oh, don't eat oil, but honestly, especially in the first year or 2 where you're trying to clean up your diet, it's very beneficial to have the concentrated omega-3s that you get in this. I really like Barlean's highest lignin flaxseed oil. The lignins are the particulates, the little bits of the flaxseed, and that has the best source of the omega-3s in it. And then a little touch of salt is always good. You can use whatever kind of salt you want. I'm using tamari, which is wheat-free. And then if you like, I like a little touch of sweetness. I like to mix all the flavors. My sweetness of choice for a salad is very often maple syrup. It is not raw, but is truly, maple syrup is my favorite taste. If one were to say, what's your favorite taste? I know a lot of people would say chocolate. It's just maple syrup for me. I just love it. Toss it quickly, and you're in business. Now, what you might want to do is marinate some veggies if you're having a different meal than what we're going to serve you tonight, the pasta, so simpler meal. Chop up a bunch of tomatoes, cucumbers, soft veggies, put the dressing in and let it marinate for a few hours, put the greens on top, and only toss it at the very last minute. So there we have our salad, ready to go for our pasta, and it's onward and upward to dessert. I hope you enjoyed the pasta, and I hope that a few hours will pass before you have your dessert, because it's a really good idea to let all those wonderful vegetables digest before you start throwing something else in that's kind of complex and sweet. So no matter when you want to eat it, I think you're going to enjoy this lemon pudding. I don't know about you, but I love a really intense lemon taste in a dessert. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with some cashews that have been soaked overnight, let's say 8 to 10 hours, 8 to 12 hours. And when the soaking time is done, you don't need to leave them any longer. You want to pour the liquid off, and even if you use them a few hours later, so they don't get mushy. So there's our lovely raw cashews. And then we have, this is juice from 3 lemons. Go down right down the hatch. And because, we want these cashews to be very finely blended, before I add in any additional ingredients, I'm just going to let the liquid and the nuts get pulverized down to a nice, smooth, creamy kind of saucy. There we go, a little bit like an airplane propeller. And then we want to sweeten it. Well, let's make it a little more lemony by adding 2 cut up lemons, the fruit of them. And then it's not going to be sweet at all, so let's see if we can sweeten it with some dates. We have 6 dates in here that have soaked for several hours, and that's just to soften them. If you're using a heavy-duty blender like this one, it's not the end of the world if you don't soak them, but if you're using a regular blender, if you haven't graduated, or it'll be a while before you're going to be able to get one of the heavy-duty brands, then you definitely want to soak them because it'll tax your less expensive blender. If you don't, you could actually break the motor. So, and then if we still need more sweetness or more liquid, look at this delicious date syrup we've created. So we'll save that in case we need it. We definitely have to go by taste test. And something I've discovered over the years, because I just really love intense flavor, I like to use essential oil. You can use just like a good lemon oil. You know, the same companies that make vanilla, they'll make a lemon oil. There's some good brands out there. This is essentially that, but it's stronger. It's an essential lemon oil. So I'll start with 4 drops, see where that takes me. And I have another flavor called citrus, but again, this is the kind of thing, it's definitely a taste test. When I wrote my first book, The Raw Gourmet, I was up at the publishers and we were creating the photographs for it. And it was kind of an early book. It was one of the first books that had photos in it. It was like in like 98 that we were doing this. The book debuted in 99. And they complained to me about the color of some of the food. And I had to laugh. It was the first raw book they'd ever done. Because, you know, lots of times the color of food looks so appetizing and delicious. But when it's store-bought, lots of times it has food coloring in it. And of course, a lot of food coloring is really toxic. So you'll see that this recipe isn't Snow White, and it isn't golden yellow. It's just the color of the cashews with the lemon juice, but it's the flavor that really sings to you. So I'm going to give it a little taste, but I bet you I'm going to want to use maybe a little bit of lemon zest too, or a little bit of more oil, of the oil. Oh wow. I hit the ballpark. I think I don't even need to use the zest. And I'm going to use maybe, it's a little tart. I could also throw in a little maple syrup or a little agave syrup, you know, and that it's sometimes good to use more than one sweetener because, again, you're getting the different tastes. Even if you don't exactly know what the taste is, your tongue discerns the variety. So one more quick zap, and we'll be ready to add dessert to tonight's dinner. I think I'll finish it off with one little shot of flaxseed oil just to lend some smoothness and good mouthfeel to it, because we do know that fat oil carries flavor. And although there's plenty of oil in the cashews, just add one little finishing touch. And there we have it. I'll put a little bit of the lemon, and it will set up and get a little thicker in about a half an hour to an hour. And there you have lemon pudding to serve your guests. If you'd like, you can put a little bit of lemon zest over it just for a pretty look. Make sure you only scrape just the yellow part because the white part is a little bitter. So sort of like, this is kind of a powerful zester, so you want to just keep moving that citrus fruit. And there you have it, lemon pudding. Here's your pasta meal spread out before you. Both the cooked pasta, the raw pasta, and the two sauces, your marinara and your pomodoro, and your lemon pudding. I hope that you enjoyed it. I sure had a lot of fun showing you how to make these things, and I hope you try them at home. This is Nomi, Shannon, and this is The Healthy Kitchen.